Welcome back to Newslink. And while Eskom has been announcing severe strain on its power grid, resulting in the entity having to implement blackouts, Sunrise Energy has revealed positive growth in the rising recognition of LPG and as an alternative energy source. The significant growth in demand suggests that more and more South Africans and the industries and businesses, as well as households, are increasingly taking advantage of the gas as a safeguard against the worst effects of the ongoing power cuts. For more on this, we're joined by Monde Tyusha, who's the CEO of Sunrise Energy. Thank you very much for your time this morning. And no doubt it's an important development in South Africa at the moment, in that households and businesses and other stakeholders are having to look at alternative sources of energy instead of relying just on Eskom. Talk us through the trends that have started to come up over the last few years, if we will.
What we've seen as Sunrise Energy, and thank you very much for having me in your program this morning. What we've seen as Sunrise is a steady increase of LPG gas since we started operating around 2017. From 2018, we had on an annual basis we had a throughput of about 52,000 metric tons that came through the terminal. And now, as of last year, 2021, we've seen that doubling to about 129,000, and showing that there is an acceptability by both the domestic users, the business and some industries in changing over into LPG, and that to us is a sign that there is now this acceptability, and as well as an improvement in people in the usage of LPG through the volumes that we see coming through our terminal.
Maybe just furnish the viewers with some details about what exactly LPG gas is and how it is used as an alternative power source.
LPG is a mixture, and we call it a mixture. Some people call it a blend. It's a blend of two gases. It's a propane and butane, and these are you find them as a byproduct of the refinery process of crude oil, and some of it you also get it naturally. So there's two sources of LPG, the natural one as well as the refinery. But you have these two gases being blended. In South Africa, we have a standard that allows for a 60-40 blend as well as 70-30 blend. That means 60% of your propane and 30% of your butane, 70% of your propane, 40% of butane, 70% of propane and 30% of butane. That's what we have as a range. So that's what we call LPG, liquefied petroleum gas, as we call it.
Now, we have had pronouncements, Mr. Monde, from government over the last few months, particularly when we attended the mining in Daba, for example, about the ways in which government is trying to embrace new or alternative forms of energy. Have you found a keen interest from government and related stakeholders regarding this, or have you found that you are the ones that are having to convince these stakeholders that this is one of the directions in which we can go?
Firstly, I want to congratulate our government for, especially the Minister of Energy, Mineral and Resources, who has had an approval of the LPG rollout strategy. That to me shows that there is a keen interest by government to see that there is an alternative, like energy sources, use of energy sources, and gas being one of those. And with the LPG rollout strategy, it then indicates what government needs to do, and that that actually also needs to have a coordination as well as collaboration between government as well as other stakeholders like us. In that, with this steady increase, there is going to be a demand for LPG import terminals. And we are placed as Sunrise Energy for exactly that. We have had an approval that allows us to expand our terminal to about 16,500 metric tons of capacity, and that will, depending on how often you then turn it around, as we call it, per month, you can increase that 16,000. Currently, our capacity sits at about 210,000 metric tons, and and per annum that we can do. With the expansion that we have, it then improves the capacity of the terminal, as therefore it then improves the accessibility of gas into the country.
No, absolutely. And I mean, just in terms of looking at the energy crisis that we face in South Africa, your thoughts on the potential for LPG gas to become an important component of electricity provisions for businesses and South Africans, alongside other alternative forms like solar or wind energy or anything, or hydrogen energy that may come on board as well. The importance that LPG will play in the medium to the long-term future of South Africa's energy issues.
Currently, as I think in one of the articles that I wrote, I indicated that if we could have an improved usage of LPG, especially by households, you can shave off about 550 metric tons, megawatts of power during the peak hours. And that, if I can make an example, that is equivalent to taking one power generation or at one of the big power stations in Mpumalanga. So the 500 megawatts that you shave off, it delays actually it assists in terms of the outages. That people are able then to cook, they are able to and I'm focusing now on especially on the domestics and also not only the domestics, especially the restaurants, the domestics. Those to me are very important in that they are taken off the grid. Let me go back a little bit further. In the old days when
that's an interesting point. So I just want to come in there, Mr. Monde, getting off the grid. It's an interesting point that you bring up there, because I have spoken to various stakeholders over a period of time who want to initiate projects that are completely off the grid. What they find is the big issue, though, is that they are not able to get the right documentation or permits to do so. So there's an issue of policy issues that exist here, in that there is there's no political will to initiate these projects or to allow these projects to be initiated to their full capacity, because there are issues of permits and, you know, all the things that I've just mentioned. I mean, how have you found that space to be?
I would go back and say with the rollout strategy, I'm really impressed on my side, because that shows that government has realized the need of getting people off the grid. So that approval of the LPG rollout strategy is part of that. Let's commend government for doing that, and it is now up to us as the role players and stakeholders in the energy space, that we then go and influence other forms of what needs to happen in getting government to approve things like for people who want to get off the grid.